Hey, everybody, Kevin here with Pursuing Pixels, and welcome back to another edition of Save It for the Cast, and you know the drill by now. This week, we're swapping out John for Randall once again, just like the regular episode proper here. So yeah, it'll just be John and I talking some video game adjacent chit-chat mostly. We kind of lean into some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, talk a little Shredder's Revenge, but also a little Mutant Mayhem, the most recently, released animated film, computer animated film anyways. Regarding the Turtles. I talked about that, I think, a little bit with Randall as well on a previous Save It for the Cast, but we touch a little bit on that, talk about some of my Turtles action figures, which I recently gave to my nephew, and then also went with my brother, his wife, and my nephew to go see the Super Mario Galaxy movie not too long ago, so we kind of talk a little bit about that, just some general impressions. So we're mostly talking kind of, Turtles and Mario Galaxy movie and just Mario, movie in general. And whatnot. And then we talk a little bit about just like, games at the arcade and the theater, a little bit of a recap, talking at the very end about like Cuphead and Cave Story. So kind of just filling John in on some of the stuff that I talked to Randall about recently. And then we talk a little bit about like 2D versus 3D boss fights and boss rushes and whatnot. At the tail end of the conversation here. So yeah, plenty of video game adjacent and then like a little gaming goodies coming up at the very end here. But as always, I got to talk about some of the stuff that I've been playing as well. And I guess kind of before I get into that, some of the stuff that I've been playing, leaning into the Super Mario Galaxy movie. This is before the new Star Fox Switch 2 announcement took place, at least, when John and I recorded this conversation. So, I was talking a little bit about the Star Fox cameo in the Mario Galaxy movie and kind of leaning into the thought of like, okay, it clearly seems like they're trying to do some kind of like Smash Brothers, ramp up to creating their own like Nintendo cinematic universe, if you will, which is kind of exciting. I'm not like over the moon about these movies. I talk about it a little bit on the episode or the conversation coming up here, that I would give like the first Mario movie an 8 and the second one here a 7, but they're just so much better than they have any right to be, really. If you think about, my era growing up, it was like any movie based on a video game was terrible and any game based on a movie was terrible. And I just feel like we've come such a long way in both regards where like it's not a slam dunk guarantee anymore. But it seems like, if they're going to go out of their way to make a Batman game or something like that, they're going to make it pretty good. Whereas opposed to, they used to be more of like a cash grab in either direction. So it's just really cool to see that. And then seeing Nintendo kind of trying to spawn out their, cinematic universe, if you will. It was really cool to see them also announce this new Star Fox game, which is unfortunately a remake of Star Fox 64. I shouldn't say unfortunately, because that's probably the best game in the series, or at least the most streamlined and polished. So I'll be really curious to see, what they do with this new version of it. I know it's kind of, people are 50-50 on those new visuals. I personally mostly pretty much like them. I don't love the character design for Slippy for whatever reason, but for all the other characters, I think it looks pretty good, and I'll be very curious to see that game in action. And it's only $50 digitally. I think it's got that $10 price hike physically, but I went ahead and pre-ordered it already because I am definitely going to want to have that game on my shelf, and I'm fingers crossed hoping. I know they've kind of like, quote unquote leaked a new like kind of Star Fox adventure style game, Zelda style. Maybe they'll lean into some of that Breath of the Wild type stuff, but I'm also kind of hoping that they're looking at this Star Fox 64 remake as like a, hey, let's just like make sure we can still make a good solid Star Fox game with the core in place, and then maybe they'll make like a follow-up to that game in like a true traditional Star Fox style as well. But either way, just happy to see Star Fox back on the map and getting a new video game release. And as for some of the stuff that I've been actually playing, the first game that I want to give a quick shout out to here is Victory Heat Rally. And I've been playing this on Nintendo Switch, and I want to say that I've probably talked about this game on the podcast way back when. I jumped over to our YouTube channel to see how long it was ago that I checked out this demo, and it was 5 years ago that I put up the video for this demo, and I think the game has been out for quite a little while now on proper platforms and fully released. released. But I scooped this up, physical copy on Switch not too long ago, and in Randall fashion, it's just been sitting on my shelf, still factory sealed. And for whatever reason, as of late, with all the hockey and basketball playoffs on, and I've been throwing on golf on the weekends, and just been kind of leaning a little more into my Switch 2 and just kind of playing handheld while I've got, whatever sporting event is on TV at the moment, or just whatever I've got on TV, just kind of flipping through the channels, or even throwing on old Turtles episodes in the background while I'm playing some games. Which has been a lot of fun lately. But for whatever reason, I was like, I I think I might have even mentioned this on a recent Save It for the Cast, like golf games and racing games kind of, they like take up a similar brain space for me for whatever reason. Like they scratch a very similar itch where it's just like, especially a game like Victory Heat Rally where you got a bunch of different circuits. I think there's 3 different circuits with 3 different cups each that all have 4 tracks per, cup circuit. So there's a ton of different tracks in this game, and it's like a 2D, 2.5D. It's definitely got some pixel art going on, but it's got a 3D presentation, think like Outrun, a more modern take on that kind of racing game. But the sense of speed in this game is just absolutely unmatched. I shouldn't say unmatched, because there's other games that definitely capture a great sense of speed, but I just find the quality of this game is just so polished. It's got a few janky spots around the edges, like something about the 2D sprites, because I'm pretty sure everything is pixel art. There's some kind of filter that by default is turned on, but I went to the pixel scaling option because I just thought that looked a little bit nicer and more reminiscent to how I remembered it. The first time I booted the game up, I will say, like, maybe it's just like it didn't feel quite like it did on the demo, but I was like, man, I remember liking this game a lot more. But ever since that very first time, and I guess ever since turning on that pixel scaling filter option or whatever, this game has just really been clicking with me. It's been my go-to, play for a half hour before bed, or like I said, play a little bit here and there and chip away at those different, circuits or Grand Prix while I'm watching some various, playoffs or whatever on TV. So it's just been a ton of fun to dig into that game. I'm so glad I finally cracked it open and started checking it out. And I'm glad I gave it like a quote unquote second chance. Not that I wasn't going to give it another try after that first quick session of booting it up and it not quite clicking like I remembered the demo clicking. But yeah, I'm just really glad that this one is feeling just as good as I remembered it. Like I said, the sense of polish, the music's fantastic. The tracks are really unique and interesting. Like it can just get a little janky when you're doing like some of the steering, like your car sprite will just like turn all the way, but you're just trying to like slightly adjust it. It can just look a little jarring at times. But for the most part, it just plays like absolute butter, and the sense of speed, like I said, is just absolutely incredible. And then a couple other games that I just want to give a quick shout out to as well that I scooped up on Switch recently. The first one here is called Mayhem Mail, and this is a game that's been on my wish list both on Steam and Switch for quite some time here. This is basically like a single screen precision platformer, arcade puzzler, a mix of all those elements. Definitely leaning more into like the action and precision side of things, but also it's throwing in a nice element of like memorization, and not in the typical sense of like where you have to memorize the patterns of the level or the enemies or the projectiles or whatever it might be. And this is a pretty frantic game, but basically on any given stage, it starts out pretty straightforward where there'll be like 3 little envelopes that you have to collect that are scattered throughout the stage. And then there's 3 corresponding mailboxes throughout the stage. And it starts off, like I said, super simple. There'll be a yellow, blue, and green envelope, and there'll be a yellow, blue, and green mailbox to drop them off in. But then as you get a little further into the game, there might only be 4 or 5 envelopes on a stage, but there might be 10 different mailboxes. And the way it's not procedurally generated in the sense, I believe the level layouts and even the mailbox layouts and colors are all the same every time. I believe it might shift those colors of the mailboxes, but one thing that it definitely shifts is the colors of the envelopes. I believe they're always in the same place. But basically, once you pick up an envelope, it doesn't show, it shows that you've collected it at the top of the screen in the sense that it like fills in the little block that shows like an invisible one was there or whatever. Like it'll show that you can collect 4 total on the stage or whatever, but it doesn't, it just turns into like a little white envelope up at the top of the screen. So you're not able to see, okay, I need to drop this off at the blue, green, and red or whatever. So you really got to start remembering, because you're really, like I said, it leans into the precision and the action and the twitchy platforming gameplay. So I feel like you really have to be on your toes at all times and really paying attention and like keeping it in the back of your brain. Okay, I got that light blue, I got the, dark green, because they start throwing in even, like a sky blue and a dark blue and an emerald green and a bright green, neon style. So it just gets like really frantic, really fast paced, and it's just another awesome game from this developer. I'm drawing a blank on their name off the top of my head. I want to say it's Silkworm Studios, and I've checked out a few of their games over the years, and this one's just no exception for just being that, kind of 80s, 90s retro inspiration, but bringing it to a more modern sensibility. And I really just having a ton of fun with that one. And then the other game I just want to give a quick shout out to as well is a game called Antipaint, all one word. And this is like a top-down roguelike twin stick shooter that just is absolutely oozing with style. The presentation is just fantastic, and it's just like kind of like almost like a bullet heaven, Vampire Survivors style, swarm of enemies coming in, although it's not necessarily played out in that same way. It's just like kind of waves of enemies that are coming in at you, but then after every wave or two, I forget exactly how the progression works, but you unlock like the ability to you go to a little hub zone or shop zone where you get to pick between one of 3 upgrades, and then there'll be shops between each actual, like before you get to the boss stage. And then the actual bosses, like it kind of leans into the think like Terry Gilliam, Monty Python style, like quote unquote animations, or even like some of those games that have leaned into that style, like Rock of Ages, if you've ever played any of those. Like it's got that kind of like real zany like sense of humor, but using like the actual art. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, you know exactly what I mean. And it just like is really fun to like square off against. Again, it's like a different boss battle each time, in the sense that it's like got the roguelike progression, and it's kind of randomly cycling through the challenges and whatnot each run. But it's just really cool to like square off against the Mona Lisa. I keep wanting to say Mussolina ever since that game came out, but you just fight against all these classical paintings, and just the way, like the sense of style, like the whole theming of the game is like you want to become the one great true artist, and the only way to do that is to erase all the art that exists. So again, you're kind of like, you do play as like this little character that has like a paintbrush, and you just can really stack the buffs. Like I really love the roguelike sense of progression here. Like it's definitely not a roguelite in the sense where it does feel like you could potentially beat the game on your first run. Although you do, in roguelite fashion, you do unlock some things like, new paintbrushes that are different weapons that have like a spread shot or a, faster like sniper style shot. Again, it's all like a top down, twin stick presentation and gameplay, but it's just really, really been a blast. I've been having a ton of fun with that game. I played the demo on my, PC on Steam, and then immediately was like, oh, it's on sale for half off on Switch. It's only normally, I think, $8, so I grabbed it for $4. But even at $8, this would be a no-brainer. It's just got really great music, really great, just everything all around. There's no complaints about this game whatsoever, other than the fact that when I try to record video for it on OBS on my computer, and this is more on my computer probably than the game itself, but I'm running it like through a capture card and everything. I wouldn't think it would be all that taxing on my computer. I've never had this issue before, but it was like running so slow. And I feel like it's just because maybe the game is like too detailed or too high resolution. I'm not 100% sure. But again, it's probably something to do with the settings on my OBS more than the game itself. But I think I've done more than enough rambling here at this point, and I think I can kick the ball over to John and I here for a little more video games, or video games adjacent, I guess kind of movie chit chat, but some video games talk here at the end as well. And without further ado, I'll kick it over to John and I here for some more chit chat. And until next week, we will catch you then, and take care.
This is prime game content.
Primo, baby. Although this is starting off with some non-game stuff, because I brought over the last couple times, well, I guess semi-game stuff. My nephew and I have been playing that like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge game. Mm-hmm. And we watched that newer movie last time. Oh, yeah, you weren't there when I talked with Randall about this a little bit, but we watched that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, it's called. It's like a newer movie. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Like it was written by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, and I only ended up looking it up because I heard his voice as the voice of Bebop. You immediately hear Seth Rogen, and I was like, he's in this too?
Nice.
And like then when they do the cast at the end, it was like Paul Rudd, Jackie Chan did Master Splinter. It was like a pretty good cast.
Nice.
And a pretty cool movie. Like it has that same kind of like its own style in its own way, but that same kind of animation, computer, like hand-drawn hybrid of like Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
So it's got that same kind of energy to it. And so ever since that, and I think he was already into the Turtles before that, because I can't imagine I just pulled that out of nowhere. He must have been watching the cartoon with my brother or whatever. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he got me all like back on a Turtles kick. And then I saw in my closet, I was like, oh man, I still have all my old Turtles action figures in here. My mom and dad just like gave them back to me in a bin.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Like I kind of want to keep these, but I was like, you know what? They're just sitting in a bin.
Yeah.
Not necessarily collecting dust because they're in a bin, I guess. But like I was like, these are just sitting here being wasted. And man, it was so immediately worth it when my nephew just started digging through that bag. He was so juiced about these figures.
Hell yeah.
And it's like, you know, in his mind, it's like, to him, it's like now all these characters live at his house now, you know, like that's like how he sees it. Mm-hmm. And it's so cool. I had a ton of different varieties. Like I had like, you know, all the regular turtles. Then I had these like morphing turtles that would like turn it. You could like almost Transformer style, like turn them into like little babies, even though I could never figure out how to do it right.
Okay.
And then, let's see, I have like a bunch of sport themed ones. Like I have like a Leonardo, like that's just in like football gear, and like another one that's in like volleyball gear with Donatello. I've got like an astronaut Raphael. And then a bunch of like the villains and stuff like that. Although not that many, even some of the ones that I thought were villains. I was like, we looked him up because I was telling him, he kept asking me, is this a good guy or a bad guy? And I would tell him, oh, this is a bad guy. And then I looked it up. I was like, oh, wait, no, he's one of the Turtles' friends. Like he started out maybe like, you know, they weren't sure about him. But then once they brought him into the fold, he became a good guy.
Nice.
But anyways, yeah, he is just loving those figures. Like he couldn't get enough of them. And I now discovered that they've like, not exactly reissued or re-released them, but they've done some like very close to those designs, like newly released versions that are pretty reasonably priced. I'm like, oh man, now I'm gonna end up buying more of these figurines for myself. But I've been getting back into the Turtles. I've been throwing on the cartoon here and there.
All right. And
it's pretty good. It holds up. Like, I watched it growing up, so take it with a grain of salt, I guess. Like maybe I'm feeling the nostalgia, but it's like, the stories are halfway decent. The voice acting's like funny. There's like jokes. Like Shredder is hilarious. Like he's like a bumbling buffoon. I never realized he was just like an idiot, basically. But it's great. I've been loving it. And then, yeah, seeing the Mario movie was a blast tonight too. It's definitely good. My brother and his wife didn't like it anywhere near as much as me.
All right.
And my nephew liked it a lot too. Like even halfway through, he just like leaned over and looked at me and goes, "This is a good movie."
Oh my god.
It was so cute, man.
That's
but they just make so many callbacks to every element of Mario. It's pretty impressive. Like they like even at one point toward, I don't want to like spoil anything. I don't know if you plan on like seeing these or whatever.
I do nothing. I could not possibly care about this.
Yeah, I figured as much, but there's like a point where like in this one, Bowser Jr. is kind of the main bad guy trying to like get revenge for his father, rescue his father, I guess, in a way. But at one point he's like making like, they're like Mario and Peach are running through this like gauntlet, and like, Bowser Jr. is like, "Mario, prepare to meet your maker." And he's literally like making a Mario Maker level as like, so up on like the TV screen of like what he's able to monitor in like the control room is like literally a Mario Maker level, or, what looks like one. And then, but then it will flash back to the actual footage of like the, film footage of Mario and Peach going through. But it's just so clever the way they tie every single element from every Mario game in the series into this like movie franchise somehow. It's pretty cool. And they even brought Star Fox into this one. So that was kind of a cool little twist. You can definitely tell that they're like gearing up to like, okay, we're going to try to have our own little cinematic universe here. And
right.
I don't know if they're going to make a Star Fox movie per se, but like, it definitely feels like they're going to try to lead up to like a Smash Brothers thing. To me, it really felt like that in this movie.
Interesting.
They had
or like do like media franchise, like here's the TV show for this
exactly
game series.
Exactly, because they had Game and Watch showed up at some point. It's the Mario Galaxy movie, so at one point they're like showing all these spaceships landing, and then this little tiny one lands, and a bunch of Pikmin come running out of it. Nice. So I'm like, okay, they're like clearly. I mean, those are just like little Easter eggs if you're a fan of the stuff, but
right, they don't need to commit to anything in case they don't have the budget for it. But
yeah, although I will admit, before Star Fox came in, even though I knew he was in the movie, they said they're like, we're gonna need to find someone who can get us off this planet or something like that, and then they show the little ship landing, and you can't tell it's small from like the angle, and I was like, is it gonna be Captain Olimar? No way. I was actually getting like kind of giddy about it, and then I was like, oh no, it's just Star Fox. I knew this is what it was, and I still got kind of fooled by it, but it was well done. Like my brother and his wife didn't seem to like it as much. Like I was like, I'd give the first one probably like an 8 out of 10 again for what it is, and I'd give this one more like a 7. Like it felt more like a roller coaster ride with a little less story going on, but it was still a fun ride. It's a good time. But the first movie is definitely a fun time, and the animation alone is like kind of worth watching it for. It's really cool.
All right.
Like I just think it's really well done. But it's funny, like my nephew right away is like, "Can we watch it at home?" And we're like, "No, like if the movies don't come out immediately, like just because it's at the theater doesn't mean you can watch it right away."
Right.
But when he was first born, it was like during COVID or right shortly thereafter or whatever. So it's like movies were coming out immediately, or to him, like most of the movies he's seen are just movies you watch at your house, you know?
Right.
So he's only been to the theater, I think, a handful of times now. So
yeah,
no, it was definitely very cool to see a movie with him. Like I felt bad they were like renovating the theater a little bit or like doing some work in the front, but I guess they always like play some arcade games when they're there. And he like turned over when we were walking in. He's like, "There's games in there," like as if like you don't. I like it's a secret, but there's games in there.
Nice.
And they unfortunately only had like some of like the claw machines and like a few other things like that, which they played. And he won a little rubber duck, so not totally empty-handed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so cool to like again, like I've said this a million times, but just see any of this stuff like through his eyes, like how excited he gets about it, whether it's Turtles or Nintendo or whatever. It's like, man, I kind of get why I love this stuff, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or loved it at the time or whatever, but there's a reason why it carries on or whatever. But on that note, though, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about game-wise. I've done like a ton of demo stuff, so I can definitely like pepper some random stuff in, but I've kind of cleaned off my plate of the stuff that I've like been playing. Last time with Randall, I just talked about polishing off Cave Story and then also polishing off Cuphead.
Yeah.
Which felt pretty good to polish off, especially beating that last boss with one final hit point left. So
beautiful.
Just felt very bittersweet, and like I got my special charged up, so I was able to like just launch my special at the last second and just do enough damage to power through it, and just like, all right, hopefully I'm gonna have enough invincibility frames during this power up to kill this thing, because if not, I'm dying for sure.
Nice.
And yeah, I powered through. That game is awesome.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been scared off by the difficulty, I'll say it's not as hard as I always thought it would be. To me,
not so much the difficulty is just like, I don't know. I'm not really like a 2D platformer like boss rush guy.
Yeah.
Like my least favorite parts of like, I don't know, a Mega Man or like I'm not necessarily Metroid, because like I don't think they're, I don't know, either that difficult or like, I don't know. But like I'm not super huge into like a 2D boss, to be honest. Like I'm trying to think of like ones that I like, and they're pretty much all just like Castlevania and Metroid, and that's it.
Interesting, because I kind of feel that way about 3D bosses. Not to say that there's tons of games that have good 3D bosses, but like, yeah, I get kind of bored. But I also kind of agree. Like the bosses are usually my least favorite part of a game. Mm-hmm. And I know I said this before when I talked about Cuphead, but like I remember that being an initial disappointment for me. Like, oh, it's not like actual like levels. It's just kind of like a boss rush. And there's a couple levels peppered in, like proper, you know, platforming, run and jump kind of levels.
Right.
Or run and gun levels. But I definitely ended up liking the boss stuff way more than those run and gun levels, partially because they're just so hard. Those run and gun levels are the hardest stuff in the game to me. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just like it's pretty much, yeah, you're just learning patterns. And if you don't like Mega Man bosses, then yeah, there's no reason to play this game.
Yeah.
Or I guess Gunstar Heroes is the closest comparison, though. I mean, they are so inspired by that game. I just repeating what I said to Randall, but like one of the last bosses that you play or the last stages in Gunstar Heroes is like this board game stage. And you like have to roll this dice and it has you land on different spaces that then will present you with a various, you know, different challenges. Mm-hmm. And it's like a roulette wheel in Cuphead, but you do the same thing. You like roll this dice, move along the spaces, and there's like 10 or 12 different bosses that you can square off against along the way before you fight like the actual boss. And I'm like, this is so Gunstar Heroes, it's crazy.
That's nice.
But it's cool. It's cool to see like how heavy that inspiration is. Like the gameplay, everything about it is so spot on.
Nice.
Like it had to be, apart from the animation style, like it had to be the number one inspiration for that game. Without a doubt. I not a doubt in my mind.
Nice.
Which is definitely not a bad thing to take your inspiration from a treasure game. I hate that, like, every now and then I think of that pun when you're not around. It just doesn't pertain. Like, I'll think of it in relation to myself, you know, I'm a John, yes.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah, that joke is just not funny when John's not involved in the equation.